Good afternoon. I'm here with Paul Cowell, the Culture Officer from Medway Council. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, very good, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. As you know, we run the KArtsCon conference every year, which Medway Council actually invited over to the Medway area in 2022. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. It's great to have you here.
As you know, every year we have a theme, and the theme for 2026 is art starting a conversation. So I'd like to start a conversation with you, Paul.
Fantastic.
Um, Medway Council has been very, very active using arts as a form of engaging with the community, which I think is an absolutely amazing and superb thing to be doing. Can you perhaps tell us a bit about some of the activities that you've got planned for this year using the arts?
Wow. I think it's good to set a bit of context, really. If I can, the Medway has a long history of culture and heritage, and literature and music and visual art and a whole range of different things. And what's been really brilliant to see over the past few years is the community in Medway really blossoming and really connecting itself and really supporting each other in not just art for art's sake, but art and culture and how it supports communities, how it tells interesting stories, not always the normal stories that we hear about Medway or the famous stories we hear about Medway, but the lesser known, the kind of interesting, nuanced stories that we have here about our communities and our history, but also uses art and culture to really look to the future as well as big, bold things like driving the future economy, but also what the future of people's identity is and what the future of life might be like in Medway, and kind of engaging people in a way that's different, that's unusual, that is creative, that's based on really um, uh, helping people resonate everyday things with what the possibilities might be. And I think that's where culture and heritage and art can really fire somebody's imagination. They can really make you think in different ways. They can make you connect across a neighbour's fence like you might not do before. You can bump into people at a festival. Uh, you can bang a drum at a workshop. You can paint what you think the future might look like. You can talk and empathize about your family and your friends and your history in a particular street at a particular time. So I really think it's something that joins people together. And what we try to do here, and what the council does, is try to support our creative community, who are wonderful in so many different ways, in helping to do that. And that works. It's been really beneficial, I think, in the past few years, where we have attracted more investment into and funding into culture and the arts than ever before. There's millions of pounds every year coming into different projects and programs and organizations, and then those organizations reach out into those communities and work with different people and tell people's stories in ways that you wouldn't necessarily think were possible. And that's what we love, and that's what we love trying to do. And we want culture around every corner. We want it to change your everyday. We want it to make you smile. We want it to make you laugh and cry. We want it to make you think differently or challenge others' opinions about things. And culture has a real special place in my heart. I've worked in the cultural sector all my career, and I've seen how it can physically, spiritually, emotionally change people's lives to the
Wow.
positive. And when you hear those stories, you really appreciate the power of art and the power of culture.
That is totally so amazing. And I'm just thinking that with such big goals and such admirable outcomes that you're hoping to achieve, what would you consider, or what would the council, Medway Council itself, consider as measures of success? Would this be some sort of thing that leads to economic regeneration, or is it community well-being? I mean, what would you consider
I
to
mean,
be measured?
all of the above, all of the above, and I don't think any one outstrips the other. It's easy to measure how much money the Arts Council give to an area. That's something, there's some statistics and figures that can show that, and that's wonderful. And we always want to see that and know that. We always want to see kind of what new infrastructure might be brought into place and how that's funded. So we've got things like the docking station, which is in partnership with the University of Kent, and the historic dockyard and ourselves coming, being launched later this year. We've had Medway School of Arts have set up out of Mid Kent College, after the demise of UCA, and there are lots of different kind of economic ways you can drive kind of success or understand what success is. I think for me, the biggest one is around well-being and those kind of wider determinants of health. So it's not just about physical health; it's about how you fit into a community, how you feel you have pride of the place that you live in. How, yeah, of course, we want people to have better literacy. Our libraries play a wonderful part in that, and this year is the National Year of Reading, and we're really playing into that as much as possible. Medway has relatively under the national average literacy levels in adults and children, and we know that nationally kind of reading for pleasure is decreasing amongst the population. So even if culture and the arts is about can support people in learning to read better or feeling more confident to read better, because you need to read the notes that your child's teacher has sent home about them being in a performance at school. You want to read the instructions on your medication, but also you want to be able to have a conversation with your next door neighbor, and understand and have a well-rounded conversation. So there's many different ways that it can help. And I think it's about happiness and pride and like I said, the kind of wider determinants of why you're healthy and why your well-being is really important. Yeah, we can measure stats on a load of stuff, but a lot of it is qualitative, not just quantitative, and that's always harder to distinguish. But actually, you get some of the best stories and the most emotive stories from people telling you how they've been personally impacted by something, and there are some brilliant stories out there.
Well, it's so refreshing to hear this from a council. So, but I mean, let's play devil's advocate then. As you know, all around the country, council budgets are being restricted and squeezed beyond anything we've ever seen. So, what would you say to those people that would say, well, that money that you're putting towards the arts should be better used for social housing or infrastructure or something else?
Yeah. So this is a conversation I've been having for the over 30 years I've been in this job, and it's I think we've got to understand the balance here of where culture sits in the broader local government ecology. And yes, of course, those statutory services, housing, supporting people who are homeless, children's and adult services, really, 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 really important services. And my take on this is that culture plays a role that fills the gaps that those services, even though they are statutory, don't fill. And culture and the arts and heritage, they support people knowing about themselves. They support people's ambitions and imaginations, which is sometimes all you need to move yourself out of a spot of despair or feeling unloved or unwanted, to move you into a position where you can get yourself together, where you can progress and you can move. And that's really important for all those statutory services as well. Because we know that your physical health and your mental health is really, really important. And I'm going to put that emphasis on mental health as well. So, our libraries are some of the last democratic spaces in the country. They're free to access. They have passionate, compassionate staff who welcome you in through the door. You can have a conversation. You can pick up a newspaper or a book or get on free Wi-Fi or go onto the internet. You can do anything you want in those spaces. You could just go in just to keep warm if you wanted. And those spaces, there are fewer and fewer of them on our high streets and in our communities. But they are places of culture. They are places that house millions of books and where culture is why they exist. And you can access that not just through the books, but through all the activities and all the events that are put on there. And if that gives you a bit of community, if that means you can have a conversation with somebody, maybe over a cup of tea, or maybe over having a go at knitting, or having a go at coding, or playing with Lego, it takes you to a place that's maybe different from where you're at personally right now. And that's where I see arts and culture really playing and making a real difference. So when it comes to those decision making around budgets, my question is always, yes, there are these numbers, and to be honest, arts and culture, we can't do it without any money, but we can do it on relatively small amounts of money. And whether that is around activating the creative community, or having some sort of coordination that supports the creative community coming together, because it is a sector based on empathy and passion and caring. And those are the sorts of people we want and we need in our communities. So I think the conversation certainly about health and well-being has changed over the past 10 years, and the evidence is there to show that arts and culture makes a real difference. And so we're not necessarily fighting an uphill battle. But in times like today, when local authority funding is really, really stretched, it's all about making the case. And I think there are lots of examples, including here at Medway, where we continue to make the case. We will always need to continue to make the case, but there is a genuine understanding from our politicians that it provides a genuine positive input and output into society and into for the residents of Medway that will be severely missed if it goes, which is why they continue to support it today.
I think Medway has the genuine advantage of having a wonderful and giving creative community, and they are always willing to step up and create something out of nothing. And I think that is just why it's so wonderful. And I'm so glad that KArtsCon is now based in Medway. Well, my final question is related to basically our theme, because the arts have such an amazing ability to reshape the way a community can see itself. And for you, as representing Medway Council, what do you think would be your dominant narrative for the arts to help, say, the most disadvantaged or impoverished areas in Medway to reshape itself?
I've learned a lot over my many years in this, working in local government and with creative communities all over the place. And that there's two things really. And one is the power of storytelling, and that stories are everything. We need to tell more stories. We need to tell them in more interesting, accessible ways. They shine a light on places and people and events that should have been, that haven't, in our history, in our heritage. But they also shine a light on our different elements of our communities today, young people, older people, newer communities here in the UK. We need to be telling all those stories, because I believe that Medway and most of the UK, our strength is in our people and our diversity, and we should be telling as many stories as possible. I also think that something that we do really well in Medway is the power of convening. So the strength in numbers of people coming together. So bringing people together as much as you possibly can to do something meaningful. And that's an event or a festival or an activity, but it's also about meaningful conversation. And I think we do it 2 or 3 times a year here in Medway, where we invite the creative community or the heritage community alongside our education sector or our public health sector to have conversations about what we can do differently and what the future challenges are and how we can shift and be flexible to make sure that we're ready for any change that's coming down the line. And so I think the power of convening and bringing people together is really is really strong. Is really, really strong here in Medway. Storytelling and convening, that's what I'd suggest are the two things that I want to continue doing.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, thank you so much for a very stimulating and refreshing conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.